Pawn to e4. Pawn to e5. Knight to f3. Knight to c6. Bishop to b5. Roy Lopez. Knight to f6. Berlin defense. King to g1. Knight to e4. Rio Gambit accepted. White can get the pawn back using the open e-file. Rook to e1. Knight to d6. Bishop to f1. An interesting sideline. Black to play. What to move? If pawn to f6, Stockfish likes to protect the extra pawn. Pawn to b4, a great move. The idea is to distract the c6 knight from the defense of e5, and then strike with d4. Hitting the head of the spear. And white has compensation for the pawn. Bishop to e7 was played in the game. Knight to c3. White doesn't want the pawn back, she prefers to accelerate the development. King to g8. Pawn to d4. Black to play. What to move? If pawn to d4. And white has compensation for the pawn. Pawn to e4 was played in the game, voluntarily giving the pawn back with the idea of exchanging the d6 knight that is blocking the d pawn. Knight to e4. Knight to e4. Rook to e4. Pawn to d5. Rook to e1. Bishop to g4, pinning the knight, and overloading white's queen, who has to keep an eye on both d4 and f3. Pawn to c3, supporting the central d4 pawn. Bishop to h5, the bishop moves before getting attacked. Pawn to h3. Pawn to a6, preparing the queenside expansion. Pawn to a4. Rook to e8. Bishop to f4. Queen to d7. And we reach a new position. There are no games from here in the Lichess Masters database. Knight to e5, a great move. A tactical way of breaking the pin. Knight to e5. Queen to h5. Knight to g6. White got the bishop pair, and her pieces are better coordinated for the attack. Bishop to d3, threatening checkmate if the knight moves. Black to play. What to move? If knight to f8, a great move. And white has in slight advantage. Queen to c6 was played in the game. Prophylaxis against a possible bishop attack. Also, the queen can help in the defense using the 6th rank. Pawn to h4. I'll open the king side, says Harry the h-pawn. Bishop to d6. Proposing to exchange bishops, but at the same time blocking the horizontal action of black's queen. Bishop to d2. Black to play. What to move? If rook to e1, reducing white's firepower. and white still is attacking. Queen to d7, a dubious move, was played in the game. Pawn to g3. Pawn to c6. Bishop to f5. Queen to c7. Queen to g4, allowing Harry to keep advancing and looking through X-rays at black's monarch. Knight to e7. Bishop to c2. White's position is very aggressive. Black has to defend accurately. King to h8. Pawn to h5. Knight to g8. The knight comes to protect the king. Queen to f5, threatening checkmate. Pawn to g6. Queen to f3. King to g7, a great move. The king helps in the defense his own castle. King to g2, clearing the first rank for the rook's invasion through the h-rail. Queen to d7. Rook to h1. Pawn to f5. Black has secured the light squares, but now the dark squares are weak. Pawn to g6. Pawn to g6. Bishop to g5. Knight to f6. Rook to h6, a dubious move. White lifts the rook, but allowing black to mount a sturdy defense. Black to play. What to move? If knight to e4, a great move. White is still better, but black managed to survive. Rook to h8, a mistake, was played in the game. White to play. Pause the video and find the best move. Yes, probably you got it right. The key is the rook horizontal X-ray. Bishop to f5, a brilliant move. Una petite combinazione, as Capablanca used to say. Queen to f5. Queen to f5. Pawn to f5. Rook to f6. Bishop to e7. Rook to f5. King to g6. Bishop to e7. King to f5. After the tactical sequence, white got two passed pawns. Bishop to d6, getting out of the open file and planning to block on e5. Rook to h6. Bishop to e5. Pawn to c5, undermining the support of the e5 bishop. Rook to e1. Rook to e8. Pawn to f3. Rook to b6. Pawn to g4. King to g6. White to play. What to move? If pawn to f4. Rook to e8, white is winning. Pawn to c5, a blunder, was played in the game. A strange move. Voluntarily pinning the e5 bishop, now the position is equal again. Rook to b2. King to g3. Black to play. What to move? If rook to a2, the only move that saves the game for black. King to g5 with equality. Rook to b3, a blunder, was played in the game. King to h4, a great move, dodging the horizontal X-ray and preparing to play f4 to secure the position of the bishop. Pawn to d4. Black dreams with weaving a checkmate net, however the wooden shield stops all threats. Pawn to d4. Rook to f3. Rook to b1. Pawn to b5. Pawn to b6. Rook to e7, threatening checkmate. Pawn to g5, fresh air for the king. Rook to b7. King to g4. Rook to f5. Pawn to a5. Black is in zugzwang. Rook to g5. King to f4. Rook to g2. King to e4. Rook to c2. Rook to g1. King to h6. King to d5. The brave king escorts his pawns. Rook to f7. King to e6. Rook to b7. Pawn to d5. Rook to c5. Bishop to c7. GG, well played. Rook to a5. Pawn to d6. Black resigns. That's how Kamalidenova breaks the Berlin Wall. White used an interesting sideline, gambitted a pawn, and reached a position where her two bishops dangerously pointed Black's king side. Her queen started to create threats. Harry the h-pawn opened the king side and the rooks slid through the h-file. After some of Black's inaccuracies, White finished with a petite combinazione and got a bishop and two pawns in exchange for a rook. The endgame required still accurate play, and White blundered and evaporated her advantage. However, with little time on the clock, Black didn't found the right move either.